Happy Halloween, and to celebrate the spookiest of days, I thought I'd pull out a special horror-themed Axe-File. We voted on this on my Discord, so come pop on by if you'd like to vote and read future Axe manga for these videos together. This is also a really special Axe-File too, as it's on a manga that's very well loved in the West, the ever-mourned Phantom Seer. Full name, Phantom Seer. Start date, August 31st, 2020. End date, April 5th, 2021. Total chapters 30, compiled into 4 volumes plus 1 bonus chapter. Phantom Seer is another manga made by an artist-author duo, and this time we have Tougo Gotou on the story, who has had this story in mind from the very beginning of their career, winning the Jump Treasure Newcomer Award with a variation of the story, which was then published in Jump Giga in 2017, while working with the illustrator Motohiro Kai. After another one-shot alongside his new partner, Kento with Matsuura, in 2017, the duo would then go on to do a 3-chapter-long water polo series throughout 2018 in Jump Giga before submitting Phantom Seer as a new one-shot to the Gold Future Cup in 2018, which they won. Before they would take the chance to serialize their work together, they would first put out one more one-shot in 2020 called Kari no Kyuuketsuki, or Dark Hunting Vampire, further pushing their horror and supernatural side. Kento Matsuura, Gotou's main partner, followed a similar path, also winning the Jump Treasure Newcomer Award for Gizokya Cerberus. He would then work on the aforementioned one-shots and short water polo series, whilst acting as an assistant on Twin Star Exorcists and Act Age in between. He would beat his partner in getting a serialization though, going on to do the art for another Axe manga, Tokyo Shinobi Squad, which alongside some questionably political ideas was a cyberpunk ninja manga which we may cover one day as an Axe-File. This would only last 3 volumes though, which meant he was free to start Phantom Seer the following year with his partner. Today's spooky tale begins with a girl called Riku Aibetsu, who possesses a kind of sixth sense and likes to use it to help others around her school. But one day a mysterious boy, known for his ties to the occult, gets in touch with her. This is Iori Katanagi, and he introduces Aibetsu to the world of phantoms, since she is being haunted by one. With the help of Iori's older sister, the two manage to confront this phantom on a train, which is accompanied by some great spreads and illustrations, showing the phantom as well as Iori's shadow demon Ongyoki, which quickly and brutally dispatches this lesser spirit. It's also revealed that Aibetsu doesn't have a special power like she thought, but actually just attracts these phantoms naturally as something called a beckoning hand, and due to this, Iori is ordered by his sister to protect her, much to his chagrin. The two then take various cases around the school where we get to meet some new characters like Kenma, who fights with these cool tengus, and it's revealed that Iori can use the abilities of past phantoms he's exercised, which reminds me a bit of Muhyo and Roji, a manga I'll bring up again a bit later on. We then get an expansion to the world when we visit the Tsukuyomi Mansion, which is a rest stop for shamans. We get a little bit more lore on different shaman groups, but I never found it that engaging or relevant, although the mansion looks really cool and we get to meet Iori's sister again in person. I do wish something more exciting happened here though, but instead we get a bit more following on Aibetsu and her whole arc of wanting to become more useful, and she decides to stay behind to train while Iori goes off with the newly introduced cool guy Kurose, who is investigating disappearances of other beckoning hands. The two end up going to an abandoned hotel where they find one of the missing beckoning hands as well as a centipede looking phantom. While this is a fairly basic fight and setup, it's made much more engaging as we learn pieces of information about the manga's main villain, Senju Doji, a character who Iori has a past with, despises, and has the ability to accelerate a phantom's growth. It builds up all of this very well, interweaving the current mission and Aibetsu's training, and then it blindsides you, pulling out an encounter with Senju Doji early, introducing her by her crawling out of another character's mouth. It helps she has a fun design, but her disregard for human life, as well as the whimsy she has that's very childlike, sets her up as a really strong antagonist. They have an intense fight, with Iori seeming very angry and Senju Doji baiting him even more with insults, and then she pulls out the hostage card with the remaining beckoning hands, which seemed to be Iori's plan all along. Ibetsu is then summoned after completing her training to rescue them just in the nick of time too, which I'm in two minds about as it's built up to and time is used effectively here, but it's all a bit too brisk for me. I think this confrontation could have used a bit more building up to because it ends very quickly with Senjudoji escaping. The next arc then sees Iori get hounded by a first year at school by the name of Sumuji Komachi, who's cute but super aggressive, and Iori is in her sights. It doesn't take too long though for it to be revealed that she's a mixed human phantom hybrid, and while it seems like she's an enemy to begin with, she actually wants to help find a way to reverse this, as well as find out who did this to her. This leads the crew to investigate any medical facility she's been admitted to, and they find out that the likely culprit is the new creepy transfer school counselor. This character is a really fascinating one and had the makings to be an excellent villain. A counselor is someone who is meant to help and nurture students. Twisting them into horrible monsters and using their insecurities against them sounds like a really great villain idea. There's just no real build-up or explanation to all of this. It's a cool fight and a cool idea, but it could have been so much more if Phantom Seer allowed itself to take a bit more time and was willing to engage in its ideas in a more serious way. The group are in a bit of a situation as well here, as they want to turn Komachi back, but this villain is so deranged they might only be able to do so by killing him, and I like that the manga is thinking about the morality of their actions here. There is a much simpler way to do this though, which they opt into doing, which involves exercising the arm given to him by Senjudoji. They end up saving Komachi and learn that Masamichi Kenzaki, the counselor, is actually an 80-year-old man and is known as a conceiving hand, one of Senjudoji's followers who presumably have been gifted some kind of body part from her, and were then introduced to 3 more conceiving hands at the end of this arc. The final arc of Phantom Seer might be its best, with our characters investigating the possible appearance of a conceiving hand at a place known as the Dollhouse. The arc excels, at least for me, because it focuses on the horror elements, and the art in particular gets a big boost. I don't like it just because of the creepy goth maid. DM me if you look like this, by the way. We get some great full-page spreads of creepy dolls, panels of the characters slowly turning into dolls, and the puppet master's designs are very cool, with her initially seeming like this older, more gloomy, mature woman, but inside stirs this creepy doll-like child. The arc is fun in its structure too, since the various characters get split up and messed around with a lot more, leading to a spotlight on Kenma, where we get some nice backstory. The puppet master serves as an extremely powerful adversary though, taking out everyone and capturing them all but Iori, who now must face his past and inner demons as well as the threat before him. While I don't think Phantom Seer fully gets around to communicating its message, it features a lot of exploration surrounding the idea of self-sacrifice. Ibetsu is prone to it, Iori is sometimes too, and it ties in with his past and connections to a girl who died for his sake. Iori this time must believe in his comrades, understand and connect with them, and work alongside them to overcome his limits and save everyone without sacrifice. It's a bit generic, its message shifts a bit to trusting and relying on others, and while I do find it a bit strung together, it's ultimately well told and unoffensive. The ending, despite it being very abrupt, is good too, with Iori defeating the Dollmaster but not killing her, going so far as to even acknowledge them by their real names. And then the manga just ends. Our journey continues, but you won't get to see that continuation, though there was some catharsis with Iori and Ibetsu completing their arcs together. One of my biggest issues with Phantom Seer is ironically also one of its strengths, its brisk pace. It definitely helped engage people, and I think this is partly why it hit 30 chapters, but Phantom Seer has this problem where it introduces characters or ideas and then immediately pushes for some kind of payoff. Oh, we learn about Senjudoji, here she is. There's the potential for mixed human and phantom characters. 3 pages later, the newest character is here, and she is one. The evil counselor character is revealed, coupled with some thematic ideas worth exploring. Smash cut to him being defeated in 2 chapters. I don't know if it being slower would have helped it survive in the magazine necessarily, but I do think it would have led to a better manga if it were allowed to embrace its horror aspects more. Build up tension, slowly reveal things so that when big twists happen, or when you see a spooky face, it has more impact. In this regard, the battle elements are at odds with it because Phantom Seer wants to be a battle shonen and it pushes that aspect first, but it's not unique enough to stand by that. We have so many exorcism battle shonen manga in Jump specifically, and while Phantom Seer is a very competently made and drawn one, it really lacks any source. It doesn't have the grittiness or some of the more unique angles or characters like a Jujutsu Kaisen, and I feel if it embraced its horror and folkloric elements more, we could have a more modern Muhyo and Roji, a Jump manga from the early 2000s that focused a lot more on horror elements and solving these supernatural cases, with it excelling in the art department just like Phantom Seer, but in its own more whimsical and stylish way. It had fights too, but those weren't the highlights. Its characters and their interactions with the weird supernatural world they inhabited made it good. I'm not sure a manga with this pacing would survive though nowadays in modern Jump, but still I think the core issues of Phantom Seer, its briskness and its weaker characters are big downsides, and I also want to highlight a manga that approaches similar ideas and in my opinion executed them well. Compared to other Axe manga though, these are such minor complaints. I could easily see a world where Phantom Seer survived. It has good art, its characters are likable enough, and could develop into something more, some of which we saw in its final arc. It just needed something extra to really feel whole, which might be more time so it could pay off things emotionally better, or it could be it embracing its horror elements more. When it ended, it gave way to Blue Box and Candy Flurry, with there being a couple possible substitutions I think for other manga to take its place, the biggest being Hardboiled Cop and Dolphin. Out of the two, I'd give the edge to Phantom Seer. Both are interesting but not quite whole feeling manga to me, though perhaps because Tamura was a veteran author, he was allowed to stay on while Phantom Seer was axed. Magu-chan and High School Family are another two manga that went on to have longer runs, both having slice of life or gag elements. They suit different niches than Phantom Seer though, and perhaps that's why it was cut. Battle Shonen in 2020 was pretty abundant with One Piece, Black Clover, My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, Underdone Luck, and Mashle. And Sakamoto Days was also new to the scene and doing quite well. Jump might have wanted to find a new long-running gag series, allowing me and Roboco, High School Family, and Magu to stay much longer. Phantom Seer is one of Jump's most beloved Axe manga, so I especially wanted to learn what they have to say about it. First off, we have Palm, who mostly remembers Phantom Seer for its crisp visuals, though states they don't necessarily think the writing was bad, it just didn't stand out amongst the other supernatural manga Jump had at the time, and I'd agree before making this video, I mostly just remembered the art and horror aspects myself as well. SDU gave me a little essay regarding Phantom Seer, again citing its great art, but this time likening the Phantom's designs to paranormal ghost shows, and I think I get where they're going with this. They aren't quite like the traditional yokai in their depictions, but are warped in a more modern horror way. They also give some critique to Iori's character, citing his abrasiveness might be off-putting, which I definitely felt, although I find he comes across as more muddled since he has this aloof side mixed with abrasiveness, mixed with seriousness, and the manga doesn't handle that multifacetedness too well. SDU also brings up it competing with other manga like JJK and Demon Slayer, with it not really offering anything new, despite being solid in most regards. Unquestionable found it average, but more on the positive side, praising its artworks and its fights with good flow, but everything else was pretty by the books, albeit unoffensive. They do critique the world building, finding it bland, and this is another big detractor of Phantom Seer for me too. What we got is either basic stuff that's been done before, or is just generally absent. There's no real meat to its world to really chew on or get excited about. Harley the Apothecary found it fun with enough character to not be generic, which I think is a good distinction to make. I don't think Phantom Seer is too generic, perhaps in its writing and tropes it used though it is, but overall it does have some semblance of character to it. Shiranasu didn't think it stood out by any means, finding its narrative boring but not overly bad. They also found Iori's initial impression with him being bored and annoyed off-putting, which again highlights his mismanaged character. It also didn't leave much of an impression on Witch Sara, who again highlights its art and fight flow as positives, but wished we got more Komachi, and I do too. She was pretty cool, and the whole phantom human hybridization stuff was one of the manga's coolest parts. Perhaps we would have gotten more if it lasted longer. Kinky focused in a bit more on why it might have been axed, theorizing its lack of commitment to its darker aspects may have been the case, with JJK embracing them and ultimately becoming all the more popular due to it, as well as Chainsaw Man. I do think it's a fair comparison, as they are both the two biggest exorcism in quotes manga at the time that were met with a decent amount of success, and despite all the creepy spirits, there was a distinct lack of danger and seriousness for me in Phantom Seer, which I think if it was present would have drawn me in more. Again, other manga were doing better in the same niche, while Phantom Seer wasn't offering anything wholly unique itself. Random OP Analyzer didn't have time to read it all, but enjoyed the series, especially its artwork and phantom designs, which they found suitably shocking and disturbing. Sirius expected more from such a hyped up series. Again, they bring up this lack of risk, and it's lacking a presence and danger with its phantoms, which other manga utilize to really push their horror aspects. Sirius also critiques the cast being fairly bland, again honing in on Iori, though pointing out that his over-the-top cynicism doesn't have anyone to really bounce off of, and his unlikable traits aren't funny enough to stand on their own, which fade away over time anyway and become generic shonen protagonist ideals, something I think a lot of axe battle shonen end up embracing. Ulkakti didn't find Phantom Seer as good as others made him believe, citing the characters not having great chemistry, a lack of world building, and it squandering its villains as detractors. They actually point out that the villains act far too cartoonishly when they're actually doing some quite messed up things. This dissonance here and its unwillingness to embrace its darker elements is again being brought up as a detractor. It plays things way too safe when it could embrace them and be all the better for it. Full Metal I think is the first outright positive reply, having a lot of fondness for Phantom Seer, and despite others' thoughts, they like Iori and the art, which is what drew them in initially, and I think that's perfectly reasonable. I think it's safe to say everyone understands why someone could like Phantom Seer, even if most can be critical of it too. Crash comes in to say, hashtag me and Roboko team won. Mikiyubi then said why Crash is to blame for its cancellation, and yeah, everyone, if you want someone to go blame for Phantom Seer getting axed, go to Crash, go to his channel, comment on his videos asking why he axed Phantom Seer, and subscribe to him, because I heard him say he'd make a video about all of this on Phantom Seer and him axing it, and you don't want to miss it. Now onto Twitter, because I wanted to broaden my audience for these comments a bit this time, anticipating that there were big fans of the series out there who might have some more positive things to say. Firstly, we have Thunder the Devil saying it was a shame it got axed, and they liked the relationship between Riku and Iori. While I think it could have been done better, it is decent, and they make a good point about their dynamic, with Riku being more proactive and positive, while Iori wants to hang back and not be the main character. There is something interesting there. Shonen OG asked whether Roboko actually had anything to do with its cancellation, and I've actually got Roboko on the phone right now. Oh my god, Roboko, holy shit, you can't say that, I'll get demonetized. Sorry about that, everyone. Mr. Shira came by to say it was the first manga they read from chapter 1 that got axed, but they don't regret reading it, and enjoyed Iori and Aibetsu's dynamic and Iori's arc in general, despite it not meeting its full potential. Chris P. Bacon is a huge fan of Phantom Seer and even showed off their collection, citing Kento Matsuura as a big influence for them as an artist, and it overall being a favourite modern jump manga for them. Blazing Stand said it was their first axe and it never bored them, with them missing the creators after they were gone, and I definitely agree, I'd love to see more of them again soon. Similarly, Iggy Pete enjoyed it from start to finish every week, was sad it got axed but was glad it happened, which is a great attitude to have. Seriously, I think more people should engage with axe manga with this mindset. Be happy it happened. Dimitron also showed off their volumes, saying they were heartbroken when it got axed, but they praised its art, fun story, and even Iori's I don't give a fuck vibe. And it's clear from these Twitter comments that a lot of people loved Phantom Seer a ton. It's one of those axe manga that has die-hard fans that love every aspect about it, even some parts which others criticize. It's also not a SWAT, where it's a fairly universally panned series, but one where people can recognize its good points and potential. Again, on the Axe Files, a part of why I make these is to show off these manga, to discuss them, engage with their stories, themes, and art, and to show them the light of day, because they're someone's favourite manga. And there really is no better example than Phantom Seer, which is so beloved and remembered fondly years after its cancellation. As mentioned earlier, Phantom Seer, while cancelled, was met with a lot of support, especially from the western side of Jump fans. You can find a ton of videos on it, its cancellation, and people just generally praising or mourning it. There was a lot of beef with the manga Me and Roboko, which debuted at a similar time, and due to it being a gag manga with not near the same amount of attention or reference in the West, it caused a lot of people to be angry at it or confused as to why it was allowed to stay in the magazine while Phantom Seer wasn't. It's something I can understand the reception behind, and it's one of the rarer cases where Phantom Seer even sold decently at the time, but gag manga are important to the magazine, and for one reason or another there was an appeal to Roboko that the editorial and perhaps children liked that pushed it as a priority, and that seemed to have been a decent choice as it's still going on to this day. Phantom Seer also got a one-shot in 2021 which fleshes out the backstory of some characters, and since then the duo have collaborated again on a couple more one-shots. Harukaze Mound, a baseball one, and the recent Kamen Kitan Teo, which I covered in a Shonen Jump one-shot video a while back. I think both have only improved since then, Matsuura especially with their art, which has gotten even more expressive and detailed. Matsuura has also worked on even more things since, such as Pen Pal at the End of the World, a really heartwarming one-shot that sees a little girl and animator share letters in the post-apocalypse. I highly recommend you read that one, by the way. Most recently though, he worked with the author of Blue Box, Kojimura, on a romance one-shot, and I think the variety of genres he's tackling art-wise will only aid him in whatever serialization he has next. I do hope the two come back together in Jump though, and get a hit, because I think it'll make a ton of people happy. And that was Phantom Seer, one of the strongest ACT series we've covered, I think, but one where I can still see why it had to leave the magazine. I do think it was an excellent showing by its author duo though, and I can't wait to see what their next pass at Jump looks like. And if you can't wait and want more manga related videos right now, then maybe subscribe and check out the channel. I have plenty of other X-File videos which might help ease any trauma you have surrounding your favourite cancelled manga, or they might also reopen old wounds. So if that's the case, why not check out my History of Shonen Jump series, where I delve into some of the magazine's oldest manga year by year. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting me on Patreon. It helps a ton and pushes me to make better videos. You'll get some cool rewards like access to exclusive X-File polls, and you can listen to the Patreon-only Trent Talks podcast at any tier, where I chat about all sorts of other media and manga. And you'll also be thanked at the end of my videos, with you getting your own personal little doodle at the $3 tier, like Kinocha, Jade, Kaizoku Gairu, Soroko Zero, Holly the Apothecary, Mayu, It's Fako, Yellowtail, Lace Loggett, Chris P. Bacon, Cho Henshin, Full Metal, Unquestionable, Weeby Boy, and also at the $1 tier, AB, Vako Draws, and Otaku Gamer X. Thank you all so much for being patrons. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to be kind and take care.